Welcome, everyone, to Watch Challenge. On each episode, we challenge ourselves to find and watch a film of a particular type and then report back the results to each other and you fine listeners. My name is Aaron Spears.
And I'm Mike Went, and we are approaching the month of October. So this month's episode is from our listener, Natalie J., and this is zombie films.
Zombie films, indeed. We're going to use Natalie J's suggestion as also a jumping off point, so we'll have a few kind of horror October-themed episodes in a row. But starting off with zombie films, strong pick. Not really a genre, as I went back and looked, that I've seen a lot of.
Yeah.
But a good amount. And then this exposed me, obviously, to some more interesting ones. Mike, I think right off the bat, again, we've got another topic where we have to acknowledge, the master of the genre that we're looking at. In this particular case, we've got George Romero, Night of the Living Dead, 1968. Do you credit him? Is he like the start of the zombie movies? Because, I mean, there's some zombie films before then, but like he seems to be like credited as the father of the zombie film, I think.
I would say so. I think he set the standard, set the bar. And I mean, that man, it really, it was unique because they made it for so little. Basically used like almost every friend that he knew in Pittsburgh, it sounds like, to make this movie. And the fact that it still is revered today is, it's really quite something. And then, of course, when he made the further, films in that, Day of the Dead and Dawn of the Dead, he really, I think, upped the game each film that he made in those series.
Yeah, and I did, like, I hadn't gone too much past Day of the Dead. Or no, actually, last October was the first time I'd watched Day of the Dead. I'd seen Land of the Dead, the one with Dennis Hopper, where it's set in the high rise. But then I also trudged through and watched, like, Survival of the Dead and some of his other continued the Dead ones. I think I finished out all of his Dead films, and I don't know. It's Romero, so like I'm giving him he gets a lot of love from me.
Yeah.
He did one, I think it's Survival of the Dead, in the style of like found footage horror, which I'm a sucker for. That found footage kind of style. They're not great, but he's always able to incorporate, I think, something pretty interesting about it. Because I think at his core, like, yeah, there's zombie movies. It's the dead are coming back to life and blah, blah, blah. But he's also got a really good eye, I think, for human drama.
Yes.
In there as well. Maybe not so much as they go on, but
yeah, you're right. I mean, because initially, I'm almost like backtracking on what I said. Like it's like the one in the 70s, which is Dawn of the Dead, and then Day of the Dead. But yeah, the ones more in the 21st century, maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe not as strong.
Left the genre alone for a while through the 80s and into the 90s, but that doesn't mean other people weren't picking up the mantle and doing zombie films. But I remember even as a kid watching Dawn of the Dead, the Romero one, and really being like, oh God, you can. It was an early on horror film for me as a kid on VHS, and going like, oh God, you can just show like someone taking a bite out of somebody on film, because horror just wasn't like my pull when I was first getting into films and getting in there. But the way that he also went beyond just like having the great, practical effects in his films for the zombie stuff, like it always seemed like in Dawn of the Dead was clearly like, okay, well, zombies metaphor for consumerism.
Yes.
The zombie outbreak as a metaphor for something else. I feel like he gets the credit for that. And that's run through a lot of zombie films since.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The commentary on culture of those times. Yeah. That's just really what I think makes a lot of those, where sometimes horror films, at least by critics, are sometimes crapped on or poo-pooed on, just seen like, oh, it's just all blood and gore. But when it makes a comment on things that are happening in society and culture, I mean, that's when it like really, strikes a nerve, I think, with a lot of people, and they can really resonate with that.
Oh, for sure. So here's a question I came up with as I was kind of looking into like what makes a zombie film, what are the tropes, what are we looking at here? And with Romero, you've got like the slow moving zombies, they're afraid of fire, only brain shots or brain injuries are going to take them out and actually kill them. You could riddle them with bullets and they're still going to keep walking. You got to, pop them in the brain. So not necessarily the most terrifying objectively thing. This isn't like a Jason or Michael Myers, like crazed killer out there
Right.
coming for you. It seems like a manageable threat
Yeah.
in what you call, I guess, like the Romero rules of the genre. But I think that allows you to have the humans that are hunkering down, especially in like, Night of the Living Dead or Dawn of the Dead in the Mall, Day of the Dead in the
Yeah.
bunker. It allows for like the human drama to take over, and humans, we always find a way to fuck it up. And
Right.
I think that's where like that human quality of his stuff comes out, where like it's not really like it's the humans screwing it up, because like this should be an easy threat. I think that allows for the commentary to come in. And then when you get the terrible zombie movies that are just in it for the gore, you're like, well, this is dumb. Like all you're here is for the gore. Like, where's your human story to
Yeah.
connect?
No, you're right. And I think some of the other, tropes that I've noticed, like at least in some of the more modern ones,
Mm-hmm.
is like, that you still have some of the slow moving zombies, but now it's just like there's always a huge mass of them.
Right,
So it's
right,
like
right.
you have our hero who, maybe there might be one of the characters that we are starting to root for in the movie, but then is ultimately his or her demise is just the fact that there's just like thousands of them,
Right. Yeah.
and Romero, of course, couldn't afford, to have the image of thousands and
Fair
thousands
enough.
of
Yeah.
zombies.
But he did have zombies that did sort of evolve too, though. Like later on, there, I can't remember which one, but there's zombies that clearly like are thinking and learning.
Yes.
Like they start using guns at one point. I was like, I mean, it's your genre, man. You can do what you want, but I don't know if I'm really on board with this kind of an element here. But yeah, it's interesting how it is sort of evolved. And actually, I was kind of mindful of that with the stuff I picked for this particular episode as well.
Absolutely.
So, well, let's get into it, Mike. What any honorable mentions you want to shout out before we get to our picks?
Yes, I have a real fun one to start off with. Some zombie movies are played for very serious, I would say, like probably 9 times out of 10. But this one was, a couple years ago, I had my wife and I we had kind of seen everything that had was out at the time, and we went to like one of the remaining dollar theaters at the time, and just decided to see this movie called Anna in the Apocalypse,
Oh,
which is it was released in 2017, and it's a British movie that is it's a zombie movie, but it's also a musical.
yep.
And it's set around Christmas time, and so it basically follows a high school girl, and the apocalypse has has arrived to their small town, their small village. And the one thing that stuck out about this is just the young actors that they got. They all have really great chemistry, and it's very modern. So you have like all spectrums of of people in the film, and the songs are extremely catchy. I know, like, we immediately bought the soundtrack
Mm-hmm.
after watching it, and it's become kind of like, if we can find it on streaming, it's been something that we have watched the last few holiday seasons, just because it's like, it's unlike anything I've ever seen.
Yeah. Same here. Once we've gotten just too many shitty Hallmark movies under our belts around the
Right.
holiday season, we're like, all right, I'm popping with tonight's Anna in the Apocalypse.
Yeah, no, but it's just a ton of fun, and it's a good spin on so the cliche, I guess, of the zombie film.
Well,
Sometimes.
it's one of those two where you're not going to get a musical Christmas zombie film until the
Yeah,
genre's been around for a little while, and we need
yeah,
to freshen it up and try a new approach. That wasn't going to be Romero's right out the gate, genre
right,
he's going to do.
yeah, but
Yeah.
it's definitely great. How about you?
I picked a couple of honorable mentions, but I went specifically for I wanted to see kind of modern ish
Yeah,
international zombie films. Like, okay, so Romero, like you said, very like local filmmaker, Pittsburgh filmmaker through and through, even in his non-zombie films, very, very
yeah,
Pittsburgh guy. So I went outside of the borders of the United States to kind of look at like, well, how are zombie films done elsewhere?
sure,
One of the great film industries in the world in the last, I want to say probably like 15 years now, is South Korea.
Yes.
And one of the ones that really grabbed me, I put off for a while because I was like, I'm just not in the mood for a zombie movie. But I finally did get to see it on the big screen, Train to Busan.
Oh, yes.
2016. Now,
Yes.
this is exactly what you were mentioning when you're talking about, I can't remember the word, the hordes, the swarm is how I
Yes.
was thinking of it. A lot of people might picture like some of the, either the trailer or the film World War Z, which I am not picking, but it's that kind of that. It's a fast moving swarm of zombies, which is terrifying in a way
Yes.
that, the slow moving ones aren't. On top of which, it's if you get bit, you're a zombie. There's a whole awful, painful looking transformation once you're bit. But at the core of this one too, you've got a father daughter story. They
Yes.
board a train, some weird shit's happening, but they're not really sure what's going on. It's in 2016, the film, so like modern cell phone technology exists, communications, that sort of thing. So they start getting the word of like how bad it is. They luckily happen to be on this train heading to Busan, when making some stops along the way. So it's kind of this like, wait, are we sheltered enough? Are we isolated enough? Oh crap, it's on the train. And then
Yeah.
it's like the checklist of like the various characters that kind of band together. There's the panicky person. There's the selfish person. Like there's all the different character types you could have that would be on a public transportation. But then also figuring out what the rules are, what's actually happening. Can you believe it's happening? The shock of what's happening. How do we survive? How do we communicate with our loved
Yeah.
ones? I mean, it's just a boom, 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 go, go, go action movie. It's got a ton of heart, great character development, but also you've got, I think, a pretty good description of, or a good portrayal of like the fast moving swarm kind of zombie elements as well.
Absolutely. I believe I saw the sequel as well
Peninsula.
2 years ago.
Yeah. Well, it says came out 2020. So a couple.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Years, yeah.
Yeah, that one was I didn't like it as much as the first, but it still it had some very inventive kills.
And there's also, I guess we should just mention too, there's one, the same director, Yong Sang Ho. Hopefully I'm saying that right. He did another one called Seoul Station,
Mm,
Seoul, South Korea, obviously the city, in 2016, but it's animated. I haven't seen it, but I think in the timeline, if I have it right, Seoul Station is first, then Train to Busan, and then Peninsula is in the world of Train to Busan, but a different story
yeah.
at the same time, if I've got that one right. So yeah,
Huh.
technically like a trilogy around that story there. So if you're a fan of one, I don't think you need to watch them in any specific order.
Yeah. I mean, so many great films from South Korea over the last like decade or so. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like I don't know. It's like there's something that they're teaching people the right way how to make films out there, and maybe it should rub off a little more on some of our
Yeah,
American.
yeah. I actually hadn't thought of the origin of that, but you're right. I wonder if maybe film schools in the US should be taking note of how film is taught, maybe at
Yeah,
film schools in South Korea, if that's the
absolutely.
source
Yeah.
for it. But yeah. So, what else you got for honorable mentions, Mike?
I guess I really kind of went more the comedy route. This one just always stuck out to me as a lot of fun. From director James Gunn is 2006 Slither,
Oh,
which is a movie where this meteorite hits a small town, and fastly these little worms basically inhabit different people, and kind of grossness ensues, but also a lot of humor. And James Gunn came from the trauma school of film, so
that's right.
where he I can't think of all the names, but I Tromeo and Juliet was one of the ones that he made, and but basically took his like low budget roots, and given a little bit of studio money, and made this like blast of a film. Nathan Fillion, who is known mostly from Firefly,
Mhm.
is really really charming in the film, and Elizabeth Banks, also, I don't know, it's just one of those movies that the last couple Octobers as well, that I just pop in and have a good time with it, even though it is like extremely gross, and I'm sure, like, by design, and but I
Yeah.
mean, it's like funny gross in a way, but it's also just a quick watch, and So it's kind of interesting now that he's transitioned to this comic book filmmaker basically. But I would love to see, once he's done with the Guardians films and Suicide Squad stuff, like I would love to see him get back to these roots and make something genre film like that again.
I don't know if this would be a topic we should do for the show at all, but there is this lament I too have. James Gunn's a good example of that. Where like, God damn it, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is grabbing up all these really interesting indie directors that I'm like, I
Yes.
want some more of your indie stuff. Can we
Right.
come on, Marvel? Like that's fine, separate complaint, possibly separate topic, but
Right. Make your
Marvel
money.
siphoning.
Make your money. Right.
Right. No, that's interesting. It's also was that a lower budget one for him, or was that like?
Yeah,
I haven't actually seen some other, so
it was like a $15 million budget.
okay,
so
not too bad.
Considering it did come out from Universal, so it was probably something on the lower end that they were doing at the time. But it's like obviously when you have a filmmaker who comes from that really low budget world of Troma, they're able to probably do a lot once they have the keys to 15 million.
Oh yeah, it's probably one of those made for 15 but probably looks like 30 because you know what to
exactly.
do.
Stretch that dollar for Absolutely. Sure. How about you? Any other ones?
Yeah, I got one last honorable mention, and I picked this one for a number of reasons. The first one is because it's just fucking great, but it's also one that I think captures the ethos of George Romero, as we were talking about with Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
And so this is called One Cut of the Dead, which is Japanese. Actually, I'm sticking in the comedy zone here. Japanese zombie comedy film written by Shin Ichiro Ueda. So again, I do not have a Japanese tongue, so apologies for mispronouncing that probably. Made it for like an extremely, extremely low amount of money, translated to American dollars, $25,000. As a filmmaker, Mike, you probably appreciate this too. 8-day shoot for this one.
Wow.
A week. Shot this movie in a week. This one, though, it is highly spoilable, which I'm not going to do.
Yeah.
So the start of this movie, when you watch it, is it's one long take, and I forget how long it is, but I want to say it's like at least a 15, maybe 20 minutes long, and you're just like, what the fuck did I just watch? It's crazy. So I'm only going to talk about the first section of it because I think it would hook anybody who's into zombie films, or actually if you're just a fan of like of films in general, because it's a movie kind of about making movies.
Yeah.
So the film starts off, you see the cast and crew of this low budget zombie film called True Fear, and they're shooting at an old abandoned water filtration plant. So the director of this movie is desperate for the movie to work out, right? He's got personal debt. He's frustrated with all these actors that are just doing their own thing and they're not really paying attention. And he's trying to arrange this like one long take of a thing. And he has drawn a pentagram in blood to try to activate, real zombies because there's this haunted pass to the water filtration plant. And that happens. Like they're shooting this, and as they're shooting it, zombies attack. And it's all one take. It's bonkers. If you're at a zombie movie for the gore, you get the gore. If you're there for like the interesting kind of dynamics within all of the different humans and how they're completely screwing this whole thing up, when it shouldn't be that hard to save yourself from a few zombies popping up when you're, all together and binded together, it should work out. But, they figure out a way to fuck up that whole thing as well. And it does play in the realm more of the Romero stuff. This isn't a swarm. This isn't a fast moving zombies, but if you're bit, you will turn, et cetera, et cetera. So it plays around with zombie conventions and also plays around with film conventions at the same time as well. And like I said, that's just maybe like the opening 15, 20 minutes of the movie. It gets really interesting from there on out, and how it plays with storytelling and the zombie subgenre as well.
And I know we maybe peeling the curtain back, but like we had talked about this before we started recording, that there's a French remake of this very film, even though I didn't know this was one of your
right,
your picks, but just it's from the director who made The Artist, that won, swept the Oscars a couple years ago. So I'm very curious to see his take on. This.
I am too. His is called Final Cut.
Yeah,
which is also a decent title. But I think if I remember correctly, One Cut. I mean, we have it like at the library I work at. We have it on DVD, so it's available on physical media. But I think Shudder grabbed it. If I'm not
okay.
mistaken.
Has it?
So it's.
That's
I think
great.
it is out there streaming as well. But any other honorable mentions, Mike, or should we jump right in with our watch challenge picks?
I think I'm ready to reveal my pick.
All right, what do you got? What is your pick for zombie films?
This film is a movie that I first heard about because my former boss, his first job in film was on this particular movie.
Ooh.
He played a driver, or he was a driver for the film, but he also they put him in makeup and made him a zombie at
Nice.
one point. So so it's a movie that I bought based on him telling us that he was a part of it, but it sat on my shelves unopened and everything. But it is Chud 2, Bud the Chud.
Eat 'em up! Eat 'em up! No, no, no! These are Chud.
Cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers. Prepare for horror, laughs, and thrills in this outrageous sequel to the home video hit Chud, Chud 2.
Bud the Chud.
Starring Brian Robbins from Head of the Class, Garrett Graham of Police Academy 6, Robert Vaughn, Bianca Jagger, Larry Linville of MASH, and many other popular stars.
A dead body is nothing to be afraid of.
He's suave.
Are you heterosexual?
He's charming. He's different.
Well, he eats people. I guess that can be interpreted as personality quirk.
He's Bud the Chud, a half-dead, decomposing humanoid, the result of a military experiment gone haywire.
Colonel Masters, there was a reason that these creatures were kept underground. For instance, the little matter of the drugs' cannibalistic side effects.
Now he's loose on the town, spreading the horrifying Chud disease everywhere.
What in the wide world of sports is going on in here?
We're not just talking about some animated corpse. You got it? Everything it infects mutates.
The army, the police, and the FBI can't seem to stop this ravenous plague. But a group of clever kids might just chill the Chuds.
Unreal.
Chud 2. This Chud's for you.
And it's from 1989. And the basic plot is, there's a military experiment to create a race of super warriors, and it goes bad. And it unleashes legions of zombies on this suburban neighborhood. So I will be the first to admit this is not what most people would consider a very good film, but it does have some charm to it, and it also features a lot of character actors that are known for the horror genre, especially the Garrett Graham, who plays Bud, and he's probably best known. I mean, he was in Phantom of the Paradise.
Oh yeah.
He's also in a couple other films that like Child's Play 2. He definitely has a lot of B movies and like horror films under his belt. The other really entertaining character is played by Robert Vaughn, who is he has so many credits, but he was in Magnificent Seven. But towards like the latter part of his life, he tended to be in a lot of these like lower budget 80s,
Mm-hmm.
horror comedies and everything. So yeah, it is, like I said, it's not, it's not the greatest movie, but it also, I will have to mention, it stars Brian Robbins, who is now the one of the heads of Paramount, but it was best known in the 80s for being in the show Head of the Class. So this was,
Oh yeah.
yeah. So I think
Yeah.
this was intended to make him maybe break out, but his role is kind of underwritten, I would say. So like, it's like you could see like, he's trying to like charm it up or something,
Mm-hmm.
but he wouldn't like probably have it on his demo reel or something. um, but I find it funny that he now like runs like a major studio. But
Yeah.
but basically, it does ultimately lead to this big, because they're high school students, so it ultimately leads to this big dance scene towards the end, and there is a with all the zombies, and there's this theme song that kind of runs throughout. It's Bud the Chud. It's kind of like an 80s like robotic rap kind of song. You can find it right now on Tubi for free as
Okay.
well. The one thing that gave me like the good feels is it was put out by Vestron Pictures. So, like that V logo,
Oh yeah.
so my guess is that it was probably direct to video. I could be wrong on that, because I think Vestron just put a lot of stuff straight to video.
Yeah. I think that was their thing.
But Bud the Chud, and I did look for my boss, but I could not spot him. But I did see his
Oh,
name in the credits as a driver. So,
okay.
um, so that's my pick, Bud the Chud
Yeah, it
2.
says originally intended for theatrical release. However, the movie was put out on VHS and Laserdisc by Vestron Video,
Yes.
September '89. So quick question. So I just, what the fuck? No, I I feel like that's the reaction watching the movie. So I'd never seen Chud 1
Same. I have not either.
until this past spring.
Which CHUD stands for Cannibalistic Humanoid Underground Dweller.
Good point. Okay. So
Yeah.
yes. So I watched the first Chud. Highly recommend, is one of those just like so bad it's awesome
Yeah.
like B movies. So I knew there was a sequel out there. I did not remember that it rhymed Chud 2 or rhymed Bud the Chud, but yeah, Bud the Chud rhymes. But it's not zombies in the first one. So you're saying in this one
They take the form of zombies. Yes.
but they're using this like the DNA or something from the Chuds from the first movie.
Yes, there is this it's basically like this, it's in these vials
Okay.
in this military area, and at the beginning of the film it gets like, it falls on the ground,
Of course.
and everybody's like, "Oh, and then that's what kind of caused the catalyst. It's like it's
Oh.
kind of lazy. I will say, like, it's not like it's kind of just done like almost like half-assed, and then it just like all of a sudden zombies start.
Okay.
But here's the thing. Here's the one thing that's funny with it as well that I just remembered is like it doesn't really have a lot of gore, because they are trained not to fully like kill them. They just kind of give you like a little bite, and that's what makes you a zombie. Like, a dog gets the zombie treatment,
Oh,
but
nice.
is not like fully maimed or bloody. It's just like a little bite, and then all of a sudden it's like this evil dog.
Okay.
So yeah, you have to. It's not a cinematic masterpiece by any measure, but I think you might have some fun with it if you're like doing a marathon or something.
I was going to say because I'm curious because it didn't sound like it had anything to do with the first one. So why would it? It's just called Chud 2. But also, yeah, I'm thinking like if as I go through October, I'll put on like double features or something when I have free time, and
Yeah.
or try to marathon something around Halloween. You want something like this. I mean, you want something. I mean, you want kind of good in comedy with all of your picks here, and those would be something I'd want in the mix to kind of lighten it up, have a little bit of like, what the fuck am I watching kind of vibe mixed in with the other stuff too. So I'll keep Chud 2, but the Chud in my queue, just something lighter through the Halloween season.
So what'd you end up picking, Aaron?
All right, so I'm gonna swing very differently, which is what really entertains me about our show, Mike. So I went back to the 70s. I really wasn't sure what to go with, but I wanted something new. Again, like I said, I don't feel like well versed in the zombie film subgenre. Sure. And so it's like, all right, well, let's get something here that I want to. And I was also, again, I was still kind of looking outside of the borders of the United States with zombie films to sort of see how the genre kind of rippled out to the rest of the world, since we're given, Romero, the father of the zombie film, the credit here. That's Pittsburgh, very American thing. So this movie goes by two different titles. I found it recommended on a Letterboxd list where it was called The Living Dead at Manchester Morgue from 1974. So obviously UK, England here.
Look, it's not my fault, Sergeant, if Christ and saints are out of fashion. Satan's all the rage these days.
Listen, boy, you keep getting on my nerves, and I'm going to give you another kind of house to look after. One with lots of bars in the windows.
We better reinforce that door. Take the lamp.
I can just imagine the sergeant's face when he finds out.
Craig, can you hear me?
Sergeant, they're dead people trying to kill me!
But then over on Internet Movie Database, it's called Let Sleeping Corpses Lie.
Ooh.
So
I've never heard of this one.
I hadn't either until looking this up. And then as looking at IMDb trivia and some other stuff, apparently it had like 15, 16 alternative titles. It was just one of those movies that just repackaged, repostered, redubbed, whatever, and was put out there. So we've got a Spanish director, Jorge Grau, Grau. It filmed mostly in Italy.
Okay.
Use it even more. It's set all in England, and there was some filming in England. Some of the exteriors are there, but it was mostly shot in Italy. And it's got an international cast of actors I had never seen or heard of before. So the premise here is you've got two characters, and it's very, very Romero in its approach, I think, because it does deal with the human element and what can go wrong with humans when they're put up against, a zombie. In this case, it's a zombie outbreak.
Sure.
So you've got this guy, George, who is traveling to the countryside on his bike, not motorcycle, not like pedal bike. So he's sitting there on his motorcycle. And then meanwhile, there's also a woman, Edna, who is also traveling to this other little city. They're heading out of the big city, into the countryside. They both happen to stop at the same petrol station, gas station. And he parks behind her. She accidentally goes in reverse, hits his bike, damages the wheel, so he can't drive anymore on the bike. And, at least I can do, I'll give you a ride. So they're now together. So they don't know each other, but they're thrown together and they get lost in the countryside. Of course they do. And because either one of them knows exactly where they're going. And what's going on out in the countryside is like the Department of Agriculture for England is doing experiments with the radiation. I can't remember how they did. It's like they called ultrasonic radiation as a form of pest control to get rid of the pests in the farmland and save crops or whatever. So they can eliminate, pests, and farms will never have to deal with pests again. They don't have to spray anything deadly. They just douse everything with ultrasonic radiation. But guess what the radiation does, Mike?
I'm going to have to guess it turns people.
Yeah. The dead start coming back to life. So it's one of these where there's 1974. So there's like a little bit of this kind of like eco-apocalypse kind of vibe to it, but in this version, it's that the dead are coming back to life. First is a guy who was freshly dead, who comes out of the grave, who I think is like a local drunk who drowned. A local farmer confirms, oh yeah, that guy, he drowned like a week ago. And she's like, well, he just attacked me in my car, but of course no one can see him. He's not around anymore. So, oh, you're crazy. So they're dealing with like what the hell's going on, but then they're also trying to explain to other people once they know what's going on. No, the dead are coming back to life. And everyone's like, what are you talking about? That's crazy. The description on IMDb I found really a great little selling pitch to anybody who wants to watch this one, and I would highly recommend it. I mean, it's not as good as Night of the Living Dead or Dawn of the Dead, but I'm going to say it's kind of close in my book. Like it's highly entertaining. It does have some good gore. It builds though. It's not like right out the gate. There's also some okay action and great suspense, good cinematography, a lot of daytime stuff, but a lot of like good night kind of gothic stuff. Some of these exteriors they shot in England. A cop chases two hippies suspected of a series of Manson family-like murders. Unbeknownst to him, the real culprits are the living dead, brought to life with a hunger for human flesh by ultrasonic radiation being used for pest control. So you've got a cop who doesn't believe anything that George and Edna are trying to say about the living dead. And he hates hippies because it's 1974 and that's, that's what cops were doing. Like I said, it's really great how it builds. If you do not care for gore at all, you are not going to like the end of the movie. It does lean very heavily into that because they're zombies and they're pulling like intestines out of people. And it's not really over the top gore. I don't know if I'm going to explain this too well. I mean, zombies aren't real, but that's what zombies do. They eat people. So you do have scenes of them eating people. I don't think it's to a gratuitous level, but it's to a degree where you're like, oh God. But it doesn't linger on it and kind of fetishize it the way like kind of more modern stuff does when it really leans into the gore. This is 74, so it's pushing some boundaries. And I don't want to go too far into it, but it does have that Romero vibe of like, oh God, these humans are just going to fuck it up, aren't they? And
because they're hippies, right?
Yeah, they're hippies, right? Yeah. So it really does have like great human drama and human dynamics to it. But it's also interesting because you have two characters who don't know each other, but they're thrown together, and because they're experiencing this trauma and this whole story, they do feel a kinship for each other. And it's also over like one weekend. It's only a few days here. But unlike Romero, there's a cause to why the zombies why they're zombies, why they're not corpses anymore. And as an audience member, you're like, oh, if they could just stop this radiation pest control experiment, they can stop the zombies. And some people at the morgue are aware of kind of what's going on because they're using these steel coffins that like bolt shut so that hey, they won't come back to the fucking life anymore. Kind of thing. So it's interesting who does and doesn't know what's really going on and who they tell and who believes them and who doesn't believe them. Because again, it's kind of a confined time period, but I'd highly recommend it. It's definitely, if you're a fan of like the Romero school, we'll say the early Romero school, this one's right up your alley and definitely is playing in that Romero sandbox very effectively.
Definitely up my alley.
Yeah, it's a solid one, and like I said, there's some good daytime shots. There's some good evening kind of shots. At one point, like they're trapped in like I guess the basement at the mausoleum at the cemetery. So then you're just like, well, shit, there's corpses everywhere. Who knows what's going to go back? So there's some close calls. It doesn't lean too hard into tropes, I don't think. Like I was like, oh, they're going to fall down now, and like, oh, please save me. Like there isn't too much of that. They're characters who I think are pretty smartly dealing with what the hell is going on, and they don't really have the words for it because they're not in an era. This is 74, so they're not referencing zombie films at all. So it's not meta at all. It's a sincere trying to cash in on, hey, Night of the Living Dead, zombies are successful. That's a hot horror topic right now. Let's make a movie. Well, they just happen to make, I think, a pretty good one, trying to cash in on a current trend. So it's either Let Sleeping Corpses Lie or The Living Dead at the Manchester Morgue.
Okay. I think the first title is much better.
And I think I found that one also on Shudder right now.
Oh, nice.
But I'm sure it's out there too.
I need to I need to get Shudder back in my life because I let it lapse, and there's a lot of good stuff on there.
Oh, and apparently Edgar Wright has also seen it and praised it, but he saw it as a movie called "Don't Open the Window." So I don't know what to tell you. One of those three titles.
I wonder if that inspired his Grindhouse trailer. Don't.
Yes, this right now is saying that it inspired his trailer in the Grindhouse double feature.
Nice.
Don't. All right, good call. Also, yeah, great film brain, Mike. You remembered the fake trailer for a movie that doesn't exist in the middle of two other movies from a decade ago.
Oh, enough. That could have been a great honorable mention. Just even like I would love to see whatever that is. Like if he ever made the feature of that, I would be like, please, Edgar, take all my money. I will.
Let's do it. Yeah, yeah. So for our official watch challenge picks for zombie films, we've got Chud 2, Bud the Chud from 1989. Which, Mike, was that a mild recommend? What's the recommendation level here?
Yeah, it's like as a fan of 80s horror, I would say if you are a fan of 80s horror,
yeah,
it's definitely on the lower tier, but it's worth a watch, and it's like 84 minutes, so it runs at a clip.
Oh, nice. Yeah, nice and breezy.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got Bud 2, Bud the Chud, and The Living Dead at the Manchester Morgue, aka Let Sleeping Corpses Lie, aka Don't Open the Window from 1974. Many thanks to Natalie J for that topic. That was a great, some good finds there. Mike, what challenge do we have in front of us for next time?
So up next, we're going to do J-horror, which is Japanese horror. So we're always taking listener suggestion, any genres or any topics you want covered. Please follow the links in the show notes. You can always email us.
Absolutely. And until next time, folks, if you're enjoying the show, rate and review the show in whatever podcast app you are using, and we'll see you in time for the next challenge.